Hey, I'm back. Week 2 of our coverage of my mental health book, Epic Tiny Victories. In this series, each week on Friday, I'm going to talk about a chapter in the book, the writing process, what inspired me, mental health ideas, things that are very hard earned, but I really care about. And I just cannot wait to share them with you in the format of this book, which is a mental health memoir about depression that is not depressing. So it's not sad, it's not hopeless, it's not painful. It is funny and it is hopeful. And last week we talked about kind of the idea behind the book. And this week I want to talk about chapter 1. Chapter 1 is called A Successful Depressive. The reason I named this chapter this is because of part of my journey has been finally going to therapy for the first time in my late 20s. That's where this chapter starts. That's where the book starts. And the reason I did so was, in my mind, a complete failure of all of my resources as a person who shouldn't need therapy. I had all these stigmas about it, all these thoughts that, something's wrong with you if you go to therapy. And I hit this depression, not my first, but the worst I'd had in my life, where it was affecting relationships, it was affecting my quality of life, my health, and it was threatening to destroy my career as a journalist because I couldn't work and I couldn't talk to people because my social anxiety was out of control and I couldn't leave the house, and it was a rough time. And so despite my better judgment, I didn't want to. I was reluctant to. I went and saw a therapist. And within the first hour, within that first conversation, I felt something profound shift in my life because I said things to this man, Sam, that I had never said out loud to anyone. And I couldn't faze him. No matter what I said, he just would say, okay. And he was modeling for me this calm, gentle, accepting response to these scary, intense, self-hurting, self-judgmental thoughts. And I never knew you could do that. I thought you had to debate your self-doubts. I thought you had to fight them off. I thought you had to distract yourself. I thought you had to, prove them wrong. And if you even had them, that something was wrong with you, I never knew you could just go, all right, sure, I hear that. I don't agree, but I get it. And just let it kind of move through you and move on. It's profound, man. It's kind of like they say in, martial arts or in combat, the ultimate form of fighting is to not have to fight at all. To have that understanding that the conflict itself goes on forever. But if you can learn enough, and if you can understand your own mind and yourself enough, you actually can just let it move through you and past you and return to the truth. And so, that's what that's what I got like the faintest glimpse of in that first conversation when Sam said okay to me, to my sort of darkest confessions. And I knew I had to learn how to do that for myself. And as I say in chapter 1, it was easy. It only took 15 years, thousands of dollars, hundreds of hours, and roughly 10 different medications. So, walk in the park. But that journey is the reason that I stand before you as a successful depressive. I'm a person who will always have the experience of depression as part of my life. It's always going to be there. It's always something that I can end up in or be affected by, but I know what I need to do to manage it. I like to say to thrive mostly, to thrive more days than not. Let's be realistic, right? And so this chapter was really fun to write, and I'll give you a little backstory on it. What ended up happening was I had read this memoir where this person started off with a very intense scene of a mental health breakdown and then kind of left you hanging and then went back and told her life story. It was a book about her leaving her evangelical upbringing and faith. And it was a very good book. And not having read a lot of memoirs when I started this book, I wasn't sure how to structure my book. So I thought, okay, I had a episode like that. Not the one I'm referring to, but one later on in my life that I was like, cool, not cool, but similarly, I'll start with that and then, I'll pause and then I'll tell my life story and it'll build up to finally coming back to that scene and then showing you what I learned. But as I wrote it, I realized that's not my voice. What's important to me is that that I'm okay. And as I tell you the stories of my life, they're raw, they're tricky. Some of them are very melancholy. And some of them are hilarious. But I felt it important that you knew as the reader, as the viewer now, that I know what I'm doing here and I know where I'm taking you and you don't have to worry about me. I want you to connect to my journey. I want you to relate and I want you to see your own journey and see solidarity and know you're not alone and pick up ideas of all the things I've learned. But I don't want you to have to read that book with this cloud hanging over you of, oh no, what's going to happen to this author? I mean, we know he lived because he wrote the book, but how bad, how dark is this going to get? And that type of writing is very compelling. I'm not against it. It's just really not the story I wanted to write. I wanted to write a book for people who, are living with mental health challenges or who love someone who is and want to better support them, who want to better support themselves. That's who I wrote the book for. And if that's true, then you got some stuff on your mind already. I don't want to add to that. I wanted to write a book about depression that was not depressing. So instead, about, I don't know, maybe a year ago, I told a story at a live event that was this story, The Successful Depressive, how I met my first therapist, some of the funny, things that came up in our conversations. I'll give you a little spoiler. My therapist lived in my neighborhood, so I would see him in public all the time, and I was like, oh no, this guy knows too much, and there was a lot of funny things, but there were also these huge glimmers of hope for one of the first times in my adult life and young adult life of, I think I can get through this no matter how bad it feels. And yeah, I guess I wanted to kind of set the table that way. I love live storytelling. It is the part of myself that led to this whole book. And there are 34 chapters in this book. I think I'm going to say roughly 25 of them, maybe more, I'd have to count, are stories I've actually performed live. And so when you write and perform a 7-minute story, you want to do a lot in a short amount of time. You want to set up a central question. You want to show people who the character is that they're following. You want to use humor. You want to be vulnerable. You want to share something, a lesson you picked up somewhere in this, hit the emotions that really matter and have this arc and all that. What did that take? Over a minute for me to summarize? You're trying to do all those things within a story, within 7 minutes. It's not easy, but it is so fun. At least it is to me. And when I am done, I have a thing where every word matters. And what's even better for those of you writers, if you're a writer, an artist, a creator watching this, one of the beautiful things for me is that I've shared this art already with people, so I have an idea of how they will react. And that gives me tremendous comfort and confidence as I now put this book out into the world. You know, you write a book, it's 2 years on your own, except for me and my editor and, you know, people I've asked to read sections. There's a lot of, you know, there is easily a lot of, oh my gosh, I hope this finds people. I hope people find it. I hope it matters to them. I hope it's good. And it was really cool for me to have told so many of these stories because I just knew like this is going to be great. And it made me so excited to put it out in the world. So I guess what I wanted to say, you know, part of my goal with this is to talk about each chapter, but also to share a tip or a piece of comfort if you are, you know, if you are feeling it, the weight of the world right now, like so many of us are. I think that for me, this story began, my transformation began when I humbled myself enough to ask for help. And I quote in the book, you know, there's a wonderful reflection from another mental health book where he says sometimes the longest journey a person takes is to that first appointment with a mental health professional. And I really feel that way. You know, I didn't waste, but I delayed years and years and years, and I tried everything else before I got to that. I humbled myself enough to ask for help. And what I believe is that if you learn how to ask for help, what you'll discover is not only are you not alone, but that there are people around you who will move mountains to help you, who will go to bat for you, who will bet on you, who will challenge you in the best possible ways, who will check in on you in your toughest moments. But you have to learn how to ask for help. You have to learn to see that as an act of power, as an act of investment in yourself, as an act of future thinking instead of, you know, a weakness. It's the furthest thing from a weakness. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to share. Chapter 1, A Successful Depressive. Next week, we'll talk about chapter 2, which is like me as a little boy, one of my first epic across the country adventures. That's really a really fun story and give you a sense of me as a little guy. But thank you for watching this, and please like and subscribe and share it with people that the book is coming out. You can click the link below to sign up to be notified when the book comes out. It's called Epic Tiny Victories. I'm so proud of it. And I started out writing it, you know, maybe because it meant a lot to me and it still does. But now I'm just so eager to have you read it and laugh along with me and learn along with me and feel a sense of hope and a sense that you're not alone, because that is always true. All right. Thanks. We'll talk next week.